this board does not have the authority to craft any regulations, whether they're aspirational or anything else, unless it's authorized by statute. And I would advise the board not to do that until that authorization comes through the legislature. That's just the way it has to work.
Okay. Is there a reason why individual citizens? Mr. Evans.
So, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but so we're saying here that that we don't have the authority to craft another license type, but nowhere in the initiative did it state the term broker or a broker license, and that's a license type which we decided to create with relative ease, and which I think is an important license type. And so it's my belief that if we don't come up with something to put in there, that the legislature is not going to get around to it. And not to say anything about the personal character of legislators, but if we look at last legislative session, it was a very busy session, but very little got put out on the marijuana issue aside from the bill that created this board. And I feel that this is something that might slip through the cracks. And so if we are able to create a broker license without that being included in the initiative, I don't see it a far stretch to create a marijuana club provision.
Mr. Chair, it is a stretch because the broker license is a subset of the cultivator license. A broker is essentially something that facilitates the cultivators in certain circumstances that are unique to Alaska. An awful lot of Alaska is not going to be able to participate in cultivating and selling their product without a broker. That's something that this board has put on the record. So because the broker is really a broker cultivator, it's a subset of cultivator, it's the Department of Law that is a regulation that you have the authority to draft. Marijuana club is a completely different animal. It is a circumstance of using, selling, possessing marijuana that is not contemplated by the ballot measure and is not authorized at this time.
That's what they're basing it.
And is your interpretation that we do not even have the ability to come up with a draft, a proposal, some ideas before the legislature so they can consider it? Because we're asking them. I mean, we're very much at an impasse in terms of how to proceed. On the one hand, the legislature was waiting for us to draft regs so they could evaluate. Now we're back in a position where we're asking the legislature to authorize this thing so that we can craft those regs that they can then evaluate. At some point, we have to actually fix the problem.
I disagree only to the extent that it's not your problem to fix at this time. The legislature has to take the initial steps in fixing the problem. What you can do as a board, well, what you can't do is write a regulation that there's no statutory authority for. So the Department of Law has already informed the board that you just don't have the statutory authority right now to create social clubs. What you can do is, after all these regulations are drafted and out, and after all this work is done, you can come together and you can decide, excuse me, we want to have a policy. We want to have a policy statement. We want to have a mission statement, something that's less than a regulation.
Okay.
And say, this is our policy. We're going to put it out there. We're going to put it on the web. We want to have social clubs. If that's what you decide you want to do, that's not going to have the force of law. It's not going to authorize anybody to do anything. But it'll be a position statement, and you can do that.
Well, and that could offer the legislature some guidance on where we view that business model going.
It could. The legislature looks at all kinds of things when it debates pending legislation.
Okay.
I don't think, honestly, that the system will escape the legislature's notice.
I would agree. I just want to make sure that there's an opportunity for dialogue. It says, obviously, the legislature has a hugely important role in this process. But the Marijuana Control Board has an important role too. Okay, so we're voting to accept, section 900. We'll start, start right here, Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Springer?
Yes.
Mr. Evan?
No.